If you're just joining us on Facebook Live, I'm Lauren Van Hamer, and I'm joined by Estes Tarver and Carrie Marshall Tarver, and I'm really excited about this. Estes, my son got so excited. You are still and always will be his favorite acting coach, his favorite acting
Tell him
teacher.
hello. I haven't seen him in a while.
He's a grown man. He's changed quite a bit, but
I love it.
yeah. So, but if you have any questions or comments for Estes or Carrie while we're going through, just put them in the Facebook chat, and I'll be able to get them to these guys. But I want to talk a lot about art and music and creativity, but I want to start kind of with COVID because the Rona hit the Tarver household. And talk to me, Carrie. Now, Estes, were you diagnosed, or did you get sick, or was it Carrie?
We basically had a stepson test positive first. Probably found out he was exposed 4 days after he was. And then we tested negative twice. I never had a symptom. Our other stepson never had a symptom. And she had all the symptoms. And we never tested positive. Yeah. But all the doctors were like, for sure.
Yeah, like
she had certain symptoms are very specific to COVID. So like, you know, he was like, you know, and then, but
and my son was fine. Like
he never had a symptom, but tested positive, you know, and then that's the scary part. It's like, especially like, I think it can spread through the youth and they're not going to get it. And it's crazy, but there it is.
It's scary. So, Carrie, can you share with me what some of the symptoms were and what you want people to know about this virus? Because I think we're all kind of getting that pandemic fatigue right now, where we're like, okay, let's just get on with it. So,
and it's peaking.
And we were so careful too, or at least we thought we were trying to be so careful about wearing our masks everywhere. You know, we were washing our hands all the time. But after my son was tested positive, it was like 5 days later, I got a fever and just got really dizzy, really exhausted. Like, you know, being quarantined in my room for 2 weeks wasn't hard. And that is saying something when you know, because again, normally I'm very much on the go. And so to just lay in bed all day, it's pretty much what I did. And thankfully, you know, because I have friends who had it much worse than I did. It did not go into my lungs. So I had much more like stomach aches and
they say it like hits you where you're weak. They say like if you got strong lungs, like she got hit in the stomach, which can be a tough spot for her.
So. But you know, and it lasted like about 10 days, and it would kind of come and go. Like I would just sleep, or, you know, again, just couldn't, the days went by fast considering, but they all kind of blended together. And then I think I would start to get better, and then I'd get hit again. And about 10 days through it is when I started to climb out of it. And again, well, we were talking earlier before we went live, but what complicated it for me was I had a concussion earlier. And so sometimes I couldn't tell, is this my concussion? Is this COVID? But within 2 weeks, I knew I was out of the woods. So that was my story.
Well, please, everyone, just wear masks so we can get on with it. I want to get back to theater.
You know, we shared too, like we got it. My sons, because they're twins, and they've been very good about wearing masks, but it just takes one time. And one time my son was riding with friends, and they were riding in the car, and it was summer, so the windows were rolled up and the air conditioning was on. And then that's how he got it. The person he was sitting next to came down with it like 4 days later, and that's all it took.
And he was like, we wore the masks in the store. And it's like, that's great.
Wear it in the car.
Wear it in the car too.
Yeah. So we are still very careful with.
And it's tough. It's tough for the teens with the peer pressure and everything else, you know, but it's like, I'm still teaching I'm teaching outdoor classes at Moonlight, and they get a speech from me about once a week.
Well, and I want to ask you, Estes, I mean, we'll just kind of go all over the place in this interview, but you mentioned the kids and Moonlight, and I know in September you started live in-person social distancing classes. So
Yeah.
two questions. One, what does social distance learning look like when you're teaching acting? But my bigger concern is I'm really worried about the kids right now. So working with kids, Carrie, your vocal coach, and as you work with the kids that you're teaching, how are our kids doing? Because the ones living in my house aren't doing that great.
No, well, one of the things I was talking to Carrie about how I was going to do class. And it was kind of I hadn't thought about the outdoor classes. I was just going to stay online. And she was like, you have this courtyard and, the buildings are old and whatever, but they're kind of awesome in that way because they're dead at night. And there's all this space and these little pathways around as I thought about it, I was like, yeah, we could use the courtyard. And then I ended up using the back parking lot because it's empty. And a friend of mine, Matt Wassick, gave us a 20 by 20 tent. And so we that he's not using right now. And so it's up through the semester, and it's not big enough to house the whole class, but we do all this kind of spreading out. And with the kids, I was telling her, I was like, right before we were starting, late August, early September, I was talking to this buddy of mine who gave me the tent. And I had taught his kids and everything else over the years. And we were sitting out in the courtyard having a beer. And I realized, and we were having a distanced beer, and I realized, wow, I think it's been 6 months since I've done this at all, not even distanced and anything else, just because of the mindset. And we both just kind of sat there and went, yeah. And so then I was like talking to her, and I was like, you know what, we're going to have little stations outside, and they're going to, the way I do some of my advanced classes, and I mean, a lot of them now is, they'll get their own rehearsal time. And I'm just like, I literally put out sanitizer bottles that were spaced out and said, bring a chair, stick it on a sanitizer bottle. That's your spot. And then when it's your turn to work, you'll be up, and they work masked, or they work like 10 feet apart outside if they want to take off the mask and things like that. But what I told them was, I was like, also, like, use the time to run your lines, use the time when you're working with me, and use the time, take 30 or 45 and just hang out with your buddies and spread out. And I was like, the class is it's a 3-hour class that I do, 3.5 sometimes. And it's just kind of a youth group in a way too, and I'm like, do that. But I said, don't take the whole 3 hours, because that's what they'll do. But I'm like, do take some time, and then also do your homework and do whatever, but use the time to visit outside with everybody. And so it's been really good like that. And I have to be a Nazi about staying distanced, but I told them, I said, I'm going to be a huge Nazi. So be ready for it. If you hear my voice go up, it means spread out. and they're very good about it. So,
well, I think they realize too, they recognize they're grateful to be together. And so
they're respecting it well, because they're glad to be there. Yeah. So that's been a good thing, but it's crazy to see, like, and the other thing I say to them, I say, it's ridiculous that you guys have to deal with this at this time in your life. It's ridiculous, but you have to. So we're going to deal with it, and we're going to keep the line strong and do it right so we can do it. And it's good lessons in a way. It'll grow them up some, but it's crazy.
Yeah. It is crazy, and they're kids, and they want to be together, and they want to be social. And I think as actors, as a theater community, we all want to be together. We're all craving that together.
Yeah. Well, and it's been good that way too. That has focused it some, that knowledge of that, understanding, exactly what you just said of, wow, I am an artist, and I need this in my life. How do I get it within this time? How, and I think at Moonlight, it's made us slow down in a good way too, to remember, hey, yeah, we're here to tape your audition, and and we do that well, and we do a lot of that, and we have people working all over the place, but it's also, and that's great, and at the same time, everybody takes their 5 or 10 minutes now to connect, distanced and all that, but to take that minute to go, hey, it was good to see you, you know, and we do the work, but it's also reconnecting a lot of things. So it's been, you know, trying to balance all of it. But
I feel like all theaters right now, all theater companies, all artists are pivoting and trying to figure this thing out, and what um, the future of theater, of this industry that we love, is going to be. I'm not a fan of virtual productions. I've been pretty vocal about that. Zoom theater, if I have to see one more, I might scream. But I appreciate the creativity.
Yeah.
I understand the need as an artist to produce art, and you need it like you breathe. So if they have to produce something, I get that.
Yeah.
Do you think, I mean, you are a filmmaker, you are a producer, you work in television and on film. So do you think these virtual productions that we're seeing from theaters right now, do you think those are going to hurt or help theaters long term?
I think it's going to, I mean, I think all of it depends on how they use it. But, and I mean, you know, I think it's a lot of it is like anything perspective, like we're doing some classes on Zoom, but we had a really good meeting right as all this hit. And I said, everything we do on Zoom needs to be super practical for Zoom. So like, what can we do that they are going to be able to take back into a room when it's over and use it? And, you know, we're doing dialects classes and things like that are specific actor skills that I think to me are great in terms of the practicality of them, meaning they're not going to learn a British dialect on Zoom and forget it when they walk back into a room or whatever. They're going to be able to do it. And so, and Pollyanna's teaching that for us, and he's awesome at it. He knows how to do the methodology of it very well. But my long-winded point is that I think, you know, I had a kid that I was taping who's a wonderfully talented girl who was playing a lead in a Zoom show. And I said, how is it? And she said, it's okay. We have to play to the camera. So I can't look at the other actor when I'm working with them. I have to look at the camera. And I just was like, yeah, I don't, you know, in terms of, and you got to do that. It's a good, again, she can take it and go, yeah, good skill for me to have as an actor, because if I want to be a spokesperson on something, I'll be much more comfortable talking to a lens than I was before this. So good there. But, and, you know, I guess if we've got nothing else to do, it's something to do. But I'm with you, like, because there is television and film, when I watch a Zoom play, I'm like, why don't they just make a film?
Please,
they can't,
please,
you know,
just make a film.
so I mean, and that's, you know, and I think there's opportunities for growth for the kids if they use them, and for actors if they know how to find them and use them, and I think it's good for parents to watch or friends to watch or whatever, and I think those are positive things. But in terms of Zoom theater, I think the minute this thing's over, so that will be as well. That's, you know, I wanted to, you know, because I want to do more theater after COVID. It's something that COVID has taught me that I'm missing in a way. And I've gotten to do a couple things with NCT, and I did a play in Denver a couple years ago. And I've been doing more theater in the last 3 years than I have done in a long time. And it's made me excited about it in a new way. And I'm older, and so what I can play is changed. I was in a weird middle phase that is coming, you know, I grew a beard and aged 10 years because it's white. No. Which I love. Honestly, I'm like, oh, I can play these guys that are, you know, but I think that I read a thing from 20 big artistic directors. It was an article that had interviewed all these guys, and they were all like, after COVID, theater is going to explode. They were like, everyone wants to produce stuff. Everyone's going to be jumping at it when it's time. I just think it's important to wait till it's time, which is hard. And, you know, but they're finding ways to do things safely too. Like, I just saw my favorite comedian is doing private shows in Vegas that are massively spaced out in somebody's backyard that's enormous. And I'm like, that's a way to do something safe. And he's getting back at it in that way.
I'm going to be writing about this in the next day or two, but I actually went to a live production in Fayetteville last Friday,
Yeah.
and a live production of Lady Day at Emerson's Bar and Grill. And I will say, it gave me hope that we are going to have live theater again. We just have to, we're not going
Yeah.
to
Well,
Zoom.
I read articles that I think are people saying, I read an article that said like New York is doomed, it's never coming back and all this stuff. And when I read it, I was like, I think this author is just depressed and these are all of his fears. And I was like,
He's a comedian too, right?
It was a comedian who had a place in New York for 20 years and like moved to Florida. And I was like, but I was like that, somebody talked to me about, getting used to Zoom and all this. And I'm like, no, I'm zoomed out, man. Like I'm in terms of work and things like that. Like it's not the same thing. And I'll go put on a play by myself in my backyard before I'll do it on Zoom forever. Like as an actor, I'm like, or I'll shoot stuff. Like I was doing this thing that got hit during COVID with some youth. That's a really cool thing I was doing. I was starting to kind of figure out how do I incorporate full production quality into some of my advanced classes, because I was trying to do shooting with some of my younger guys and they weren't getting as much out of it, even though they thought they were, because they were shooting, they were excited about that. But I was like, they're not really getting the same amount of acting work I can help them with if I don't deal with all the shooting crap. Well, once I have my advanced kids, I can make them help me as crew and rotate, and everything functions clean. And I had this really cool thing. And I was like, well, we can't finish what we're going to do because of COVID. So but I was telling her last night, I'm going to rewrite something that's 2 or 3 people that I can distance and I'm going to finish it, but so I think, it's a little adapting and different things, and then it's gotten me editing a lot more. I'm catching up.
You gotta love editing. I'm editing all the time. That's all I do now is edit. So, Mark is on Facebook and he has a question about your favorite playwrights. Have you done playwrights? I feel like this is a very direct answer, but you are a writer. You're both writers. Yeah. Estes, who are the artists and writers and filmmakers that inspire you?
Oh, good question. My old school stuff. I'm fans of people from like my parents' generation, like Robert Redford. I'm a huge fan of Paul Newman. And then, one of my favorite actors right now is Jason Bateman in terms of actors. My biggest the guys that are my biggest idols are the guys that do it all a little bit, which is like Ed Burns. I love these guys who were actors, but they also, while they became Sam Shepard, who is such a great writer and also a brilliant actor. Those are the guys that I emulate or, that I aspire to in terms of a career. I'm a variety junkie. She'll tell you, like, I get bored like that. So like, I love it when I've got an acting job on Tuesday and I'm directing something on Thursday and I'm teaching on Saturday. Like those for me are, and then I'm writing a script on Sunday at home, like that's why I became an actor too, because I was like, every story is different. I'm not going to be stuck in the same story behind the same counter. I can jump in and out of all of this, so that I love. And I'm starting to make some headway as a writer, which is something I've been chipping away at for a long time. And then, but to answer Mark's question too, I have a couple of favorite players. One of them is Sam Shepard. And then, but also Mark himself is he's laughing right now because he was half joking, but he's a brilliant playwright that I would love to see get more attention in the Triangle as a writer. He's a brilliant, we do a lot of stuff together at Moonlight that like the sketch show that we've been doing, he writes half of it, I write the other half, and then we put it together. And then, but he also has, he's been an O'Neill's semifinalist twice and these are things that like people don't know the credential that is. You know, once you're a finalist, you're getting a TV deal sometimes, but or massive people are reading your scripts. But he's an incredible playwright. So it's somebody here that I would love to see produced more. It's something I aspire to do at Moonlight as we get back in gear, is to and as it grows, like our space confinements for his full length plays haven't always worked. And it's something that I would love to see happen down the road in terms of, you know, showcasing the work of a local playwright who really is just a career writer. Like, I'm a writer and an actor and director, and I became a writer through my acting and directing. And I would call myself a hack of a writer in those terms. I've learned a lot because I've written a ton, but I write a scene and I know it works because as a director and an actor, I know what to put in there to make it work. He's like a craftsman who's got a master's and has been getting plays produced all over the place in theaters. But here, I would love to see him grow locally.
Well, and I think when I interviewed you before, Estes, we talked about that you had participated in a theater, like a playwriting lab or a workshop lab in New York, and how much you valued that experience, and how you were hoping to bring that here.
Yeah, he runs that writer's lab for me here, and we kind of have been on and off with it from COVID. We've been doing it on Zoom some, which has actually been fun. One of the few things on Zoom that has for me been fun, because you can it's so impromptu, and it's been good in that way. And then but we developed a writers group here that, especially as we were able to get back into space, it's been a great thing, and I think will continue to be. And you know, we started to have smaller projects being produced out of it. Like, we had a camera guy show up one night and ended up making a short that one of the writers wrote, and they all met at the writers group, and then a film got made, you know. And that's the kind of stuff that I love seeing in New York, and that's why New York does what it does, is there's a lot of that, you know. But I was a part of Naked Angels group up there, which is an amazing theater company that does so much cool stuff. I saw an amazing play David Schwimmer directed there with like Noah Emmerich, and they do amazing stuff. But they have something called Tuesday Nights at 9 that moves around in different bars, but they have an incredible following. So when they're in a big space, it will be packed for people to hear 10 minutes of a play from all these writers that are kind of their core guys. And so, and you can show up as an actor at 8:30, and at 9, if you're right for something, you're reading a script in front of a lot of people, which, so it was a great way to get seen up there too, you know. And we've been building, I tried to structure it similar because it was such a fun event here. So, and we've been just slowly growing it, and it's been a fun thing.
Carrie, I just stumbled upon your music in researching for this interview, and I love it. It's available on Spotify. You can find it online. You've released an album this year, right before
this year.
Yeah.
It seems like 100 years ago, but back in February, you released an album. Yeah. And your music has been described as jazz and blues, but when I listen to it, I'm hearing a lot of, I don't even want to say gospel, but definitely spiritual music, spirituality in there as well, spirituals. How would you describe your musical style?
Oh, that's always such a hard question for me, but you touched on a lot of those points, because the jazz purists would not call me a jazz artist. I've done a lot of jazz shows and jazz gigs, and I love them, but definitely, blues, gospel, jazz, singer, songwriter, Americana, Celtic. Like, I pull from different influences, and I was trained classically, so.
And it's hard for her to pin it because she can do everything. It's unbelievable. She sit down at a
piano. Such a groupie. I love this side of you. I really am really loving this. So.
Also written 2 full-length musicals that have two that we've produced at Moonlight that have been amazing, and the music is, would be wonderful in a big theater, and like I'm just constantly like, oh my God, you can do that too.
What's fun about musicals, writing musicals, is, and I get to put into one show all these different styles, you know, because you know, different albums, you're going to feel a different flavor of what I like to do. So like the Waves album has more of a blues gospel influence for sure. And my home album, which came out in 2013, definitely like the Great American Songbook, that I was going for the old classic jazz. You know, my album was called Redemption before that, definitely much more inspirational piano pop. And then, you know, again, like the changeover, the movie that Estes wrote, that I wrote the music for, that was really fun for me because I got to just play around instrumentally, which I enjoy. And so I pulled more from, again, like kind of singer songwriter, simple melodic lines. So for me, like, you know, when I hear Estes, he's the visual guy and I'm audio. Like I hear music in my head all the time. And he sees something that he can put together as a film, and I know how to match it musically. I think about it that way. So that's my long-winded way of saying, you know, I guess how I describe my music is just singer-songwriter with jazz and blues influence. You know, kind of Barellis meets Carole King meets Nora Jones.
Carole King. I hear the Carole King a lot in that.
Yeah.
And that's what I think I love so much about the music I was listening to. I know in your bio it says you are an experienced traveler. Do you think that your traveling informs this ability to capture different sounds in your music? It doesn't sound like your music is just kind of a one note. It sounds like you have a lot of different influences.
Yeah, I really do. And I think songwriters, we pull from everything. You know, it's always great when you can experience it yourself, and certainly traveling and I grew up I've lived all over the country. So, you know, every new place you live, you has its own flavor and uniqueness about it. But, you know, you also draw it from people, you draw from things you've read, things you've watched. It can be, you know, and I used to joke, be careful when you're friends with a songwriter, because anything you say or do could be put into a song. You know, and it might just be one little line or one word even, and you take it and you morph it, and then out comes a song. So
you talk about Estes being the visual guy, but you are also a painter. You've painted some beautiful paintings, and I'm kind of wondering.
True. She's her worst critic.
I'm very insecure about my painting. Doesn't stop me, but
no, the paintings are really beautiful. I can't draw a stick figure, so beautiful. Is there any crossover between music and painting, and how does one art form inform the other for you?
That's a great question, and it definitely does. I didn't start painting until 5 years ago. It was when I was going through a divorce, and I didn't want to have to, you know, wanted to save money. And so I'm like, well, I'll just try painting something so I can put it on my wall. And if it's terrible, no one will care because it's just me. And, but I found as I started trying it, that I'm very visual as a musician. So when I'm writing a song, I'm really trying to paint a picture with notes, with a mood, with music. And so it was just translating that to a canvas. And, you know, the theme of Waves, you know, which is what the name of my latest album was, that's also, that hit me after like 3 years of me painting a bunch of waves. I was kind of like, hey, I've got a theme here. So, and I was writing about things with water and never even put the two together. So sometimes it's just stuff that's going on subconsciously, but it bubbles out. And then, yeah. And so it's, you know, it's like a different language, but it's still a way to communicate. And so it's just been a fun way for me to explore the creative process. And also for painting, because it was new, it was good to start trying something where you're a beginner, because it helps me as a teacher remember what it's like to start singing. You know, I've been playing piano since I was 7, and I can do it in my sleep. But it's great to remember what it feels like to have to grow a skill, you know, and the perseverance that it takes, and the patience and the discipline that it takes. So that's kind of what painting does for me.
It's so interesting because I too think I was asking my mom this the other day, actually. I think I started playing classical piano and I was 7 or 8, and I played competitive piano. So I learned one song a year and I perfected it. And I remember just looking at my piano teacher one year saying, I just want to play the theme to Ice Castles. That's all I want to do. This is 8. That's all I wanted to do. And I read on your bio that the reason you became a songwriter is because you were sick of other people dictating you the notes.
Yeah,
I was about to say this. I thought it was the funniest thing I'd ever seen, especially knowing her. She posted this note that she had written as an 8-year-old that was like in a diary or something, and it said, I always have to practice the songs they make me practice, but when no one's here, I just play my own songs, and those are like more fun instead, or something like that.
There's a diary entry of me complaining about my parents.
And it was like this, but when everybody's gone, I just play my own songs, you know? And I was like, well, all right.
But it really was, you know, growing up playing classical, you're always so afraid, at least I was, afraid of hitting a wrong note. And you work on these runs, and it does remind me, at least theoretically, of ice skating, because I'm not a good ice skater, but you know, you work on something, and in the performance, if you miss one thing, you get docked for it. And that stressed me out. And I used to think, or it would make me mad that, you know, because I'm playing Beethoven, I'm like, he's not around. He doesn't know if I'm playing it at, you know, whatever tempo that it says in the music. If I want to play it forte here, I want to play it forte. And so I think there was that like artist side of me that wanted to create the music that I wanted to create, where classical, you know, you are following the dynamic markings, you are following the exact notes on the page. And I like the freedom and the flexibility of writing my own stuff.
For me, it was Ice Castles and the theme from Superman. That's all I wanted to. I didn't write music.
Yes.
I just wanted to play cool music, which,
Yeah.
again, I'm aging myself because that's what was.
That's when the Superman theme was.
The Man from Snowy River. Did you ever play Man from Snowy River?
No, I never played that. I really love Broadway too, but once I convinced my piano teacher to let me play the theme from Ice Castles, there was no going back. I never went back to
Awesome.
I want to talk about the creative process, and Estes, you kind of touched on this, but I feel like this period of COVID, and Carrie, you've posted music during this period online, old music that you've revisited and kind of rebirthed, and even old paintings that you've rebirthed. I feel like this period of COVID, artists are learning how to embrace the process almost more than the finished product. You know, I think in normal times, we're always chasing that finished product. What do you guys think?
Definitely. One of the things that I think has been great about the fact that you know, I was talking before we went live about how COVID has sort of forced us to isolate what we do best and really make sure that we're doing that. And I think for us, that's arts education as an organization at Moonlight. And when what you see is that, because that is what we are sort of known for, you find all these actors that go, well, I can't act right now, so why don't I get really sharp while I'm waiting? And And how do I do that? And that's been, you know, with some of the outdoor stuff we've been doing, really been productive in a way that's fun. And there's so many things to work on. You know, you can't do physicality that's in a scene when you're trying to social distance. So how do you make that work? Which is honestly just a great skill. When you don't know how to make something work, you got to learn how to make it work. That's part of what directing is. That's part of what acting is. So as a director, I've had to learn how to help them make something work when they have to be 8 feet apart or whatever. And then the actors are learning, how do we keep this moving with this physicality? So there's some good things in it in those respects, but I think that it forces that. And then for me as a filmmaker, my editing is becoming much more disciplined, like, because I don't do well sitting in a chair, and I shoot a lot and then it sits on the shelf for too long while I'm getting the million things done with Moonlight. And this has helped me. I finished off, or I actually did the drywall in a room in our basement so that I could use it as an editing room and to start to go, hey, make yourself a space you like to be in, learn how to do this. And we have 8 episodes of a web series that's a parody of telenovela and soap opera, and it's wacko that I'm about to start promoting. I just started promoting it kind of last week. That's going to come out in the middle of December, kind of in lieu of our sketch show. We have like 8 episodes. It's about an hour and 40 minutes of this stuff that we've shot maybe a year and a half ago that we actually finished a while ago, but me just getting to it, right? And I'm on episode 6, and I'm able to put a deadline in my schedule and I'll hit it. And that's partly because I'm learning how to be more disciplined about go finish it off, you know, because you made it. Now part of the process isn't just, hey, I get to be fun and creative. It's also the discipline of finish what you started here, make it work right, and get it production quality and do all that and put it out, you know. And that's the balance of, I think, being a creative sometimes, is you have the left brain and the right brain, they both have jobs, and you got to make them both do their jobs, which for me is, my left brain does not like to do that stuff. So, and I'm very left-handed.
How about you, Carrie? Have you embraced kind of the process of creating music during this time? I feel like I've read a couple of posts where you said you've revisited songs that you've shoved in your notebook, forgot they were there, and you pulled out again. Is the process ever finished for you as far as creating?
Well, yeah, I think, you know, as far as a song from start to finish, you know, production wise, there's always something you can keep adding. And at some point you just have to be like, call it a day. It sounds good. Move on to the, but for sure, you know, this year, I think, has brought me back to the love of why you do what you do, you know, and I think, well, of course you miss the live performance for sure. You know, I've missed the connection with the audience, and you write these songs, you know, they come from here, but you also want to share them. That's the beauty of it, is finding that common ground, that common humanity that, you know, at least for me, like if I can encourage somebody or help somebody else, you're like, I'm not alone in feeling like this. I love that aspect. But there are seasons in life, and this is a season to be quieter, yeah, and have the time, you know. And again, I had mentioned earlier, you know, I got a concussion in January, so I had a head start on quarantine, because when I first got hit, I couldn't do anything, and it was very strange, because I went from going full force to nothing, and you know, they would just tell me like, take a brain break. I'm like, what is that? You know, where you don't feel sick, but if I did too much, my brain, I would literally shut down. I couldn't be on screens. I still, in fact, can't watch TV. And that's why, you know, I'm not looking at the screen even with you the whole time. But it really made me stop. and then it helped me also to reflect on, okay, why do I do what I do? And what's really what's most important? Who am I? You know, it's not, I think sometimes as artists, we can get so caught up in our work. In a way, we can lose the sense of who we are, and so, or we become, we find our identity only in what we're doing. And at least, you know, that for me can be a danger. And so to recognize when, oh, all of a sudden I can't perform anymore and I can't do lots of things, I'm still me. And again, the art is a reflection of that, but it's
you got to do both.
Thank you. So anyway, this year has been a lot of that for me. And then in finding, again, just the process of, okay, so write about this, paint about this, whatever, you know, just let it come out and don't worry about the final product yet. Just create, and that season will come back. It's just right now, we're all in hibernation, and so let the ideas flow.
So well said. And that is actually one of the reasons I have trouble reviewing Zoom theater, because I think, to me, it's almost like looking at a work in progress. It just can't be, or work in process. It just can't be reviewed as we would review a Mamma Mia or a West Side Story that
right.
NCT.
Yeah, it's that.
Estes, you've done film and TV work. I know SAG-AFTRA recently put out safety guidelines for productions, and that the productions are getting back to producing. I know there was a lot made about the fact there's this Hallmark Christmas movie that was filming in Wilmington that some people locally were involved with.
I had somebody, one of my students is on it, is on one of them.
So do you think the guidelines are enough that they put out, the safety guidelines? And what does the future of the television film industry look like amidst COVID?
I think that the guidelines are probably fine, but that's going to vary with every production company, how they enforce it. It's going to be this, how does this crew handle the situation, you know? And then the scary part to me is about accurate testing, because you get a job, they schedule a COVID test for you, you go get it. Now that's great, but if the test isn't accurate, what are we doing? In terms of some of that, I read something a while back, and I don't think this ended up happening, but something about how they're going to distance the actors, but use camera tricks to make it look like they're not distanced. And as a filmmaker, I'm like, you can't do that. It's not gonna look right. So there's a part of me that's like, that's not gonna work. They're just gonna get on set and go, I mean, you guys can stay apart, but if you'll scooch better, or scooch, it'll look better. And it's like, well, now what are we doing? Because you're gonna get an actor on a set, and they're gonna do whatever you want them to do in terms of not wanting to get, you know, they're gonna want it to look good once they're there, and all that stuff can get hard to stick to. And it's like, but I think that I know that production is kicking back in, just because I coach actors a lot, and there's a lot of auditions happening. Some of them are for something next year. Some of them are for stuff that's shooting now. I just taped somebody yesterday for Ozark, you know, that series, but it's not for a while that it's actually in production. They're just checking it out. So all that stuff's happening.
I auditioned for something. It's shooting in California, but I liked what they were doing for their COVID guidelines, because if you book it, you have to go out and quarantine with the whole cast and crew for 2 weeks, and then they shoot, and you are not allowed to leave until they are done shooting. So it's like a 6-week commitment if you book it. And the first 2 weeks, you're not even shooting; you're just staying quarantined.
And that was a non-union job too. Yeah. And then I'll tell you what I have liked seeing. There's a show, and I'm not allowed to talk about it because it's NDA stuff, what it is, but there's a show that's doing an interim series of episodes during COVID that they're like bonus episodes, I think, and they're, I think, I don't know a lot of this because it is all confidential, but basically like the writings catered to smaller casts and things like that, so that they can keep it safe, which to me, I think is very doable. You know, I was telling you about this thing I'm finishing up And I found a way to finish it and be very safe and keep everybody honestly probably 6, 8 feet apart outside the whole time we shoot it. And, you know, and that stuff to me is great. And then, but this I thought was a really cool thing. They were like, well, what can we do right now? Well, what if we wrote something different that we could shoot now and catered it to all that? And I go, oh, that's a cool idea. You know, and there's a show that everybody knows that's doing that I think, well, I think when it gets announced, it'll be really cool because of just how they did it, you know, but.
And you have a class. I mean, I should say that you have a video class, Book It From Your Basement, because a lot of actors right now are doing the auditions at home and doing their self-tape. So that's available online. People can purchase.
Yeah. There's literally a Facebook page for it that has the links, and then it's Book It From Your. I never remember if it's I gotta look. It's either how to book it from. It's bookitfromyourbasement.com. That's what it is.
Okay, good.
Very it's a super practical. If we give away the first video of just how to set up cameras and lights, and then there's about 19 videos that Sean McCracken and Sean's one of my main guys, great actor and teacher at Moonlight, and we put together just it's funny, it's fun, and but it's also just it's not us trying to magically pass esoteric direction through a computer to people. It's just very practical things that work. Like, okay, if this happens in a scene, switch your eye line here and it's going to look better than if you don't, you know. And it's things that will tell, honestly, some, you know, skilled actors, even when they haven't been able to have a director self-tape, it kind of puts you in your director head if you have to do it at home, so that you learn how to direct yourself better. So it's a lot of that stuff, but it's fun. I make fun of Sean all the time. We have a good time.
Carrie, we have a Facebook question for you. Linda wants to know what inspired you to write the song about Pollyanna.
Great song.
The Pollyanna song, actually, you know, Estes and I have known each other for 10 years. So this goes way back when.
And this I did not know either, which she's about to tell you.
So, you know, I started acting when I lived in Nashville just as a way to make money for my CDs. I had no desire to be an actress. I just wanted the money. So I didn't know a lot of things. I got booked on a lot of commercials, but when I moved to North Carolina, I signed with an agent out here, and she was like, "You need to get some indie film work under your belt." And anyway, he had coached me on stuff, and and at that time, even then, I'm embarrassed to say this too, I was kind of like, why do I need a coach? You know, like, I know how to do this, and you know. So, but as I started learning more about acting, I started to, again, understand the artistic process and why people, you know, subtext. When you say something, you have a whole bunch of meaning behind it that isn't said. And I started to see that even about myself. And Estes, I can't even remember how it came up, but I was kind of joking, and I recognized that I was, in my words, I just said, I'm such a Pollyanna because I want life to be happy and good, and I have great intentions, and sometimes life isn't happy and good. And so I had mentioned that to him, you know, and again, acting is what showed me that, and he thought that was hilarious because I was just saying it off the cuff, like a joke, like, oh, I'm such a Pollyanna, and he was like, yeah, you are, and I was like, that was just a joke, you know. And as he said that as an acting coach, he said that to me as an acting coach, I started to really dig a little deeper and go, oh my goodness, there's a whole lot here that I didn't know about myself. That as I started to look at it, you know, again, just learning to embrace the mess and learning to say it's okay not to be perfect.
And learning that that's the gold.
Yeah, and
That's gold.
and again, as an actor, he was trying to pull that out of me to give an authentic taping, but it again had so much bigger implications. So that's where that song came from.
So, speaking of not being perfect and things being kind of messy, you posted on social media a few weeks ago, you were diagnosed with breast cancer. There could be some women watching or some women at home. And I have to confess, I'm one of these women that have put off doctor's appointments and routine physicals because we're afraid of going to the doctor. We don't want to be exposed to COVID because we're going to get a routine test. Can you share as much as you're comfortable about your diagnosis? And it is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So can you talk about mammograms and how important they are?
Yeah, I almost didn't go because, again, because I already had such a crazy, zany health year. And I've been, you know, I call like 2020 for me personally, it's the year of the doctor. I've been to the doctor so much this year. And I was, you know, on the other side of COVID, feeling better, getting my concussion. I've been seeing a concussion specialist. That was getting better. And then sure enough, my OBGYN, their automated things like, you're due for your mammogram. I was like, ah, and I almost didn't go. Thank God I went.
And then they called her and said, hey, we have a new machine that is new and excellent for dense breast tissue.
Yeah.
And
which I've always had. And I never, ever thought I'd have breast cancer.
And they were like, it's a $260 charge. Would you want to use it also? And she was like, oh my God, $260, I guess. And thank goodness, because what they found was a small tumor.
Yeah. And so my prognosis is good. I'm stage 1 and grade 1. So, and I just had my surgery. It'll be a week tomorrow. So I had surgery last Tuesday. And so still kind of bouncing back from that, recovering from that. But I have, and again, breast cancer awareness. I knew nothing about breast cancer. I've been taking the crash course, learning a lot in the past 4 weeks, 3-4 weeks, whatever it's been. And, but there's something called receptors. And so everybody's story is different. And I'm positive for all 3 receptors, specifically one called HER2/neu, which means that I have to have chemo. That's what I'm dreading. I have, you know, so my chemo starts in a month. And I have to have chemo and radiation and then hormone therapy for a year and all sorts of fun stuff. And one of my fears is medicine. I hate taking medicine. I'm like Miss All Natural girl, and I just have to get over that fear because like it or not, I'm going to be taking a lot of it. So, so that, you know, again, I feel like baby stepping it one day at a time, you know, and Estes is awesome as far as supporting me. And overall, I mean, yeah, I cry every day. Honestly, I do. And then dry your tears and do whatever, you know. I was trying to work today. Today was supposed to be my first day back at work, and I got there and it was like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired. I can't do it. So I came home and took a nap. Try again tomorrow. And then we'll see, you know, we'll see with the chemo. You know, I've talked to some other women who are warriors, who are so brave. They give me a lot of courage. And I look at their lives and how they still move forward. And again, I think when you share things like this, some people are so very private about their health. And as a songwriter, we were talking about this a little bit before we clicked the live button. But as a songwriter, what's weird, I'm an introvert, but I'm not afraid to take whatever it is I'm going through, write it in a song, get on stage and tell 500 people all about it.
It blows me away. Like if you see her live, she sings about her heart. And it's like, I'm always like, as an actor, I get it in certain ways, but I'll sit there and go, oh my God, how are you just singing about that like that? And professionally doing it, for me, it'd be such a distraction. Anyway, but
yeah, so, you know, this is good, the next leg in the journey. And again, I think big life lesson for me that I feel like God's teaching me over and over again, is just taking it one day at a time. And again, my identity can't be wrapped up in what I do. It's a reflection of who I am, but it's not who I am, if that makes sense. And it's a gift. The arts are a gift, and gifts are meant to be shared. So how do I share that with people in a way that I feel like uplifts everybody, I guess, you know? And again, being a mess, if me being a mess encourages somebody else, then I'm happy to be that, you know. And so here I go, and it's the beginning of the next race for me. You know, I was really hoping to be coming out of the concussion stuff and feeling strong, and now I'm like, okay, now I'm going to be in for my next big challenge, and here we go. So,
well, I know everyone on Facebook is gonna send the positive vibes, the prayers, the love, the light, and you're when you made the announcement, I posted on your page. You're such a fighter, so you will you'll be one of the warrior women. And
She talked, I wanted to just touch on this because I think it's so relevant. And she said it in a couple of ways, but I think when she talks about the art of the reflection of who you are, you know, I think that's so important now, especially with all the social media stuff being so consuming to people, about meaning, oh, if I can spend all my time getting followers and likes and all these things, instead of really going, hey, what do I do? And how do I, yes, use those platforms to do it, but rather than make it all about the platforms versus doing what you do and being who you are, and then sharing that, you know. And that's, I think, something that, you know, I think, honestly, in ways, I think COVID will cause some reflection that's healthy with some of that for people. And then, you know, that's just, that's something that I hope to see that trend head more that direction as people mature in all this stuff. You know, all the social media is maturing and becoming whatever it is in the next phase of it. So you hope that it eventually circles around and goes, oh yeah, this is supposed to be about all of, you know, and it's a mix everywhere. But anyway, something that I heard in that.
well, we all curate, I think, what we put out there on social media to make it look like to look at all our lives, I think, through this Pollyanna lens. And I think when you're authentic, that's when you can really connect virtually through these crazy times.
Yeah, that's a great way to say it. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, thank you both for this so much. I've enjoyed spending time with you. Carrie, I'm not sure we've actually met in person, so I hope we can do that when things are safe and we can all get together. And Estes, I like this kind of at-home side of you. The last time we did our interview, we were at Moonlight, and you were like going a mile a minute. You just so I kind of like this at-home Estes.
I appreciate it. Working on it. Slowing down was my New Year's resolution. But I appreciate it.
And I will put the links. I did put the links on the Facebook post to Carrie's website, so you can check out the new album, to the Moonlight website, so you can learn more about classes. And the changeover film's still available. I saw somebody saw it recently on Amazon. So if you want to see the changeover film, I know we're all looking for things to watch right now, so people can watch it on Amazon.
It's on Amazon, and it's also on YouTube now on a couple of channels, I think.
Okay.
It's so like if you search it on YouTube as well, like the full length is on a channel there.
And I did have an internship at a soap opera, and my grandmother used to love the telenovelas, so I'll keep an eye out for the web series as well.
We had such a blast making this thing. So it's a fun, crazy, it's random and crazy. And we've done it live in the sketch shows. And we haven't concluded it in the sketch shows, I don't think. So it'll be fun. for the people who have seen it in the sketches. It'll be fun to see it shot, I think. So, well, thank you, Lauren. It's been great. Great talking to you.
Thank you both. Great connecting. Carrie, just persevere and stay safe and as healthy as you can. Hopefully 2020 cannot throw anything more your way. You're done. You're good. And just take care of both of you, and I hope to see you both soon.
Same to you. Thank you, Lauren. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.